Hey everybody, welcome to Get Better, your weekly weather forecast. In rain news, Nashville got all the rain in the entire world. Hey Zach, how are you doing?
I am doing great. In the
I don't know. I don't know if you heard, but my entire town went underwater and it flooded and also landslided, which was real things that closed down the city. It was a stupid nightmare, and Sam was right the whole time.
Oh, okay.
How's it going in Louisville?
It's doing really well. Today was really sunny. It was 65 at one point. So, went out to park and just sat and read. It was really nice.
Oh, that's nice. What park do you go to?
I go to Falls of the Ohio, which is the one where you can see Louisville, the Louisville skyline.
What? Is it in Indiana?
It is in Indiana.
Oh, I know that park. Okay,
so,
you
have to take a major loss by going into Indiana, which
you unfortunately have to go to Indiana.
Yeah. So just knowing I'm in Indiana, but I get to look at Louisville, so it's like, oh man, if I could also do this while in Kentucky, I would do it. If there was a way that I could get some tax initiative going where I could fund a giant mirror to Indiana where I could just see Louisville from Louisville, then I would totally fund that.
Here's unfortunately in the lost episodes we did dunk on Indiana for about an hour.
Oh, okay.
And those are all gone, but I just need everyone to know that we did dunk on Indiana for about an hour. And yes, it's super unfortunate if you live in Indiana.
Yeah.
Especially if you live in the city right across from Louisville, your city is worse and you know it.
Yeah. Well,
that's good.
Yeah. I mean, that is just there's just a couple of core stances that we have on this podcast. And that is...
We don't talk about Ghost.
We don't talk about Ghost. I think that Spider-Verse is the best movie ever made.
Sure.
And Indiana is, if mentioned, will get dunked on.
Look,
those are just the facts.
If you're trying to hang out around an old, abandoned Colgate factory, Indiana's great. But if you want happiness, go across the bridge to Louisville. So it rained infinity in Nashville, and it flooded the whole town.
Yeah.
And it closed all the schools down, and there was a literal mudslide that reports are saying it's February 27th. It might not be cleared up until at some point in March, maybe mid-March. So it might take weeks to clear up the mudslide that happened because all of the rain. And I was right, and that's what's important to me. But you know what the other thing I've been thinking?
What?
So it's spring now. It's nice. It's not spring yet, but it's nice, and it's warm. And summer is right around the corner. So after my wife and I got married, we didn't take our honeymoon immediately. We waited a little bit. And we were planning to go to Florida at her grandparents' house, but then there was a hurricane and it got canceled. So we later took a trip to D.C. All that to say, on the lead up to the honeymoon, thanks to Justin McElroy, I got really, really into Jimmy Buffett.
Good.
I got really into Jimmy Buffett and was listening to Jimmy Buffett every day. And let me tell you, Jimmy Buffett rules. And I was getting ready to go on a beach vacation. So I was like, yo, boat drinks. I'm all about boat drinks. I'm all about this pirate life. I'm just going to listen to Jimmy Buffett all day, every day until my wife is nauseous listening to Jimmy Buffett. Great. So beach trip gets canceled. Whatever, we go to D.C. It's the nation's capital. It was great. Who cares? Summer's coming up. And I have that same feeling of oh man, I should get back into that Jimmy Buffett vibe. And you know what I've realized? Here's how broken I am as a person. You know what actually occurred to me and I realized?
What?
Liking things is fun. Enjoying things makes me happy and I should do it more. So I'm way into summer this year. This year, summer. We're going to get new trunks. We're going to get beach days. We're going to go play some Frisbee. I'm just saying I want to get way into summer because I feel like it's a way to be happy. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no,
You're gone.
It's funny that you said you like Jimmy Buffett, not because you like Jimmy Buffett, but because you've kind of been teetering. So for those that don't know Sam goes through phases of existence that all kind of have the same through line, which is, I think in a way to describe it is honesty in a way that is not poetry for the sake of poetry. And I'm going to try to explain this. So there was a time where Sam, and I think in these things are all still true. And if you go back to them, it's not like I was in this phase, I'm out of this phase. It's like, this is a time when I found out that this thing rules, and I'm going to keep thinking this thing rules. So Sam got really into rap music way before I met him. And I think it was less than the music itself, but more of like the sheer unbridled honesty found in rap music. And then while we were in college, Sam became what we can only describe as Country Sam. And Country Sam got really into country music, like so much. And it was, there was this one song that you kept talking about. And I don't know if you know what it is, but you loved it just because it was honest. And I think it was like a song about like America and nostalgia or something. And I know I'm describing every country music ever made, but do you know what I'm talking about?
It is a song called What I Love About a Sunday, and it is a fantastic song.
Exactly. And the way you described it was not based upon any like, wow, what an unbelievable poetic and like amazing thing and like new thing to say about like existence. No, it was just like,
exactly
hey,
the opposite.
This is stuff that I like. And then you were like, yeah, I like that stuff too. Good.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same way with a lot of music you like. And also like, I would even say that one of the reasons why I think that we both like Taylor Swift so much is not because of her musicality, but because she does an excellent job writing down how something feels, whether or not that's right or wrong. It's like, hey, I've been in that situation, and that is exactly how that felt. Like,
Can I jump in for 1 second?
Yes, you may.
We watched the documentary. We watched the Taylor Swift stadium tour thing on Netflix. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where they showed a concert of hers, and they did the song All Too Well, and I was just like, man, that's exactly what it felt like. Was like, this song is really good. Like, I just kept thinking the whole way through, like, man, this is exactly like our discussion last week. Like, I don't have anything smart to say about it, but like, man, this song is really good. And it's exactly that thing where it's like, man, you just really hit it on the head. Like, this is, this is how this feels.
Yeah. And
this is good. That's why her music's good. It's just like, yeah, you just very clearly explained how something feels. I like that.
Yeah. And I was just recently explaining to someone how I just really don't like poetry for the sake of poetry. You know, it's like, you can string together a bunch of cool words, but if you don't believe them, then it's meaningless. And so I was talking about the song by Dire Straits. It's Romeo and Juliet. And it's like a reimagination of like the Romeo and Juliet song, or like that story. And the way that Romeo asks out Juliet is he says, "You and me, babe, how about it?" I'm like, that's cool. That's a cool thing to say. Rather than, using that as a way to go into some like deep poetry about like the nature of relationships and love. It's like, no, you and me, babe, how about it? It's like, yeah, tight. That's awesome.
Right.
So cycling this all the way back around, I'm not very familiar with Jimmy Buffett, but the Jimmy Buffett that I am familiar with is that exact same thing. It's not overly poetic. It is not overly romanticized view of anything. It's just like, hey, you want to talk about cool stuff? And you're just like, yes, turns out I do. And then he's like, you know what's cool? Parrots. And like, yeah, those are pretty cool. Or, what's cool? Salt on a margarita. And it's like, yep, I'm 100% with you, Jimmy Buffett. And I think that's like the through line that's following you through all of your music.
Right. It's just like, do you like drinks? Yes.
Yeah.
Do you like the beach? Kinda. Do you want to just like chill? It's like, so much, Jimmy. Do I want to do that? And he's like, I'm going to give you a permission slip to enjoy all of that. And it's like, cool, man. But that's what I'm trying to say is like, sometimes, it sounds so stupid. I just sound like such an emotional cripple, but it's just like, hey, man, what if you just really liked stuff? And it's like, yeah, what if I just really liked stuff? Like, it's the weekend, and I'm just really going to enjoy that. Like, because, okay, so here's me. Here's why I'm terrible. And I feel like we're in the, like, trilogy of episodes where I talk about how broken I am. So I promise we will stop and talk about like Batman or whatever anyone listens to this show for. Also, episode 2 just went up today, so hooray! So whatever anyone listens to this show for, we're gonna talk about why I'm broken.
You're talking about enjoying things? You're talking about enjoying summer and life and how that is good? Yes.
I'm broken.
This is good radio.
I don't. Here's the thing. This has happened to me a lot. Like all yesterday, I was hanging out with Ryan, and I was just like talking to him, and then midway through the conversation, I was like, I have no idea where I was explaining to him this controversy going on in Nashville with the mayor and this paving company and how they're like cheating money out of the. It's wild. Basically this paving company was defrauding the city for money, and they were saying that workers were there when they weren't. And then the Tennessean, who's our newspaper, got proof of it, and it became like this huge story. And they were already under investigation, but then the investigation ratcheted up, and then they got audited by this auditor, right? And it came back that there was no wrongdoing, and one of our councilmen was like, lost his mind about this. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, we have photographic evidence that these executives were at this game when they said they were at work. Like, we know for a fact that they absolutely were not doing this thing. Like, how can you say there was no wrongdoing? And he was like, we reject these audits. We're going to get someone else to do them. But like, you're also on our list. And then it came out in the article. They're like, this is also the guy who did the audit for the former mayor who left in disgrace for misusing city money, and she got audited by the same guy, and it came out that there was no wrongdoing for her either. So there's all this like, now there's this news story about like, so who's this guy and what's going on with his audits, because all these corrupt people are getting audited, and then it turns out that actually they're not in trouble, but very clearly they are. And anyway, I'm telling this story to Ryan, and we're hanging out, and then halfway through the story, I just like looked into the middle distance and was like, what was I talking about? And he was like, I don't know. The story. I was like, well, like, I don't remember. Like, it was just like my brain just like collapsed on itself and was like, nope, I got nothing. I have no idea what it was that I was talking about. So something about how I was broken.
Well,
I have no idea what it was.
That kind of leans into how I think most of the time, in the time that we knew each other in college, we were little goblins that would roast everyone and everything in our paths. So, you know, like, I think enjoying things in a genuine way is a good step.
Yeah, it's just like fun to like stuff. It's fun to be like, to like lean into that and say like, you know what, man, I'm just going to be vulnerable and tell you that like I enjoy this and this makes me happy. I'm just going to do that. And I'm not going to sit here and be too cool to be happy. It's like, nah, whatever. I don't know. Summer's fun. Jimmy Buffett is cool. I'm going to sit around and like chill. And that's okay with me. And I'm not going to like panic about the fact that I'm not working at Pixar, which is just basically how I spend all of my time. It's just like sweating. Like, oh no, you aren't already the best version of yourself ever. So I guess you're probably a failure. And then I do that all day. Let's talk about cartoons.
We were talking about the nature of art in cinema last week. I don't know if...
Nah, that's boring. Let's talk about cartoons.
Back to that one thing you were saying about the mayor. That's really interesting because I was watching this documentary that I cannot recommend enough. It is called Street Fight, and it is about this 2002 mayoral campaign in New Jersey with our good friend Cory Booker, friend of the show, and
friend of the show. I've heard there's a lot of documentaries about him, and they all make him look bad.
I don't think this one makes him look bad. It just makes him like when you're watching a documentary about a politician and like you're kind of getting into the weeds of their life, you kind of see that there is a certain degree of play acting you have to do. Like, you know, you have to, like, you do care about these things, but you have to voice it in a way. And, like, there's a lot of people that pull them aside and that are just like, hey, like, say this with this inflection and this with this inflection. Like, you know, like a candidate for anything, like, especially the mayor, anything is like, it's not one person, it's a whole team of people that are constructing this like ideal version of you. Anyway, this documentary, Street Fight, which is about our good friend Cory Booker running for mayor in 2002.
Sure.
He is running against this guy who's been this mayor for like 13, 14 or whatever, I don't remember how many years. But
Yeah.
it like really leads into how this mayor of New York, New Jersey is like super corrupt and is like using it is not Cory Booker because he's racing against him. And he's just like this super corrupt guy who is just like using all this city money to like do X, Y, and Z and just like be generally awful. And it's so funny that like this, like a similar thing is happening in Nashville, and you just like don't think it's like, dude, I mean, I guess it's like, you know, you're the mayor of a big city, Nashville, but it's like, dude, you let like all this power go to your head.
Well, I want to clarify. Granted, this podcast isn't coming out till 2022, but the mayor I'm referring to currently is Mayor Briley. He is good. I'm not going to say great because I've been burnt before, but he's good. He's a good mayor. He's the one heading off the controversy about
Okay, good.
The previous mayor, Mayor Barry, who I thought was fantastic, and then it turns out that she was having an affair and misusing a bunch of city money. And it made me deeply sad right around when we started this podcast, and I was very sad for 8 episodes. Mayor Barry is the one who had to resign in disgrace. So just so we're clear, the current February 2019 mayor of Nashville, I don't think is a bad person as of yet. I mean,
it turns out, you know,
end up horrible. But anyway, I just want to clarify, the current mayor is not in a scandal. It was the former mayor who was in a scandal.
Yes, but you know, you have this, like, mayors of cities are just like, you know, like corrupt politicians and so forth, but it's just like,
sure,
you're not even that high up the scale, you know, like you're just like kind of like, I mean, yeah, it's over a city, but I mean, you know, like how bad can you do? Turns out a lot. And I just, you know, I just thought that was interesting because I was just watching that documentary and I was like, how'd this guy get away with so much? Like, it's still a town. like chances are you've seen this dude. Like, I'll never see like any like major politician except for that one time where I saw Rand Paul at a Best Buy, which is, but then again, I am from the town that he is also from. So not too big of a difference there.
We also, the biggest business in our small town, Spencer's Coffee Shop, is like 400 feet from his office. Yeah. So like, we sort of are near Rand Paul.
Soon to be Spencer's, Kentucky, because they're taking over the whole city. But I just thought that was interesting. And as you were saying that, I was just like, man, like mayors be getting away. Like they just be, you know, just using, like, because I think if you're the mayor, like you have to just, and maybe, I don't know, because the thing about Cory Booker is, and this is like one thing when you're watching the documentary about him, like you never really get the sense that then this could go against me. You never get the sense that he cares all that much. Like he is, you know, saying all the right words and like being like da 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 da, but like you can tell by the way he's talking and the way he's like orating things. It's like, you're not gonna be here, man. Like, and he was only there for 2 terms, then became senator, and now he's running for president. So like the entire time he's talking, you're just like, this isn't like the guy before you was, he was like a crook or whatever, but like I can definitely see the point of view of the people, because it's like, but he lives in this town. He'll be in this town. He'll always be here. This is like his thing. But with Booker, it's always like, this is like a stepping stone, man. So I think that like if you're going to be the mayor, generally you would assume that it's going to be on a stepping stone. So like, you know, why go too fast in corruption too soon? You know, why try to pocket small money when you can pocket big money? This is my official endorsement of political corruption.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, local politics are more, I think, they're less crazy making to follow because they are just as insane as regular politics, but it's like people care less, and so they're less gonna scream at you. You know what I mean? When when someone in the government does something really like atrocious on a national scale, a lot of people feel their identity is wrapped up in defending that ideology, even if like what the person is doing is atrocious. Whereas on a local scale, people don't care as much, and so you can be like, oh, this person is a goblin man, and they're just like, oh yeah, that does sound bad. And it's like, yeah, aren't they obviously awful? Yes, they're obviously awful, right? Like people, because they don't care, because they haven't formed a personal identity around because they don't know who the people are, basically. Like if Bob Mendez yells at Mark Swain for an audit that came out very suspiciously, like there's not, the person that cuts my hair is not going to be like, whoa, oh well, yeah, but did you ever think, you know what I mean? Because they're not
yeah
you know what I mean? Because they're not listening to some YouTube channel that's telling them what to think about why they should, that's giving them a permission slip to let this behavior be okay. Because that's a lot of it, is just like, well, I want this to be okay because it's part of my identity that these people are the good guys. So someone please give me a permission slip for why actually this is okay. And even if the rhetoric doesn't make any sense, as long as I have some words to say that will justify this terrible behavior, that's enough for me. Even if the logic doesn't make any sense of like, this person lied when they said they didn't commit any crimes, so obviously they're a liar. So now when they're saying, hey, I committed a bunch of crimes, well, we shouldn't believe them because they're a liar. And it's like, well, yeah, but they lied about being innocent, and now they're saying that they aren't innocent. So shouldn't we believe them? Well, no, because I really care about the person that they're saying is also a criminal. And it's like, yeah, but what you're saying. But you know what I mean? When that happens on a local level, it's like, oh, yeah, these people are clearly lying. Who cares? And it's different. Hey, let's talk about cartoons.
I know. I was about to say, I was like, we're teetering very close into breaking the unspoken rule.
We literally, our rule is we don't talk about ghosts, and we have another more secret rule that we don't even talk about the secret rule.
Yeah,
I
that is
that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
teetering.
Cartoons. Also, hey, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the super secret Patreon exclusive show, Two Dudes Do Tech Support. Hey, Zach, your connection is very bad. So here's the thing. You'll cut out for like 10 seconds, and basically I'm hearing these episodes for the first time when you send me the recording, because I just hope that you're going to talk for 12 seconds. Like, it's like 10 seconds of absolute silence, and then you pop back in and you're like, and then Cory Booker, and I'm like, great, awesome. Let me get caught up on what he just said the last 10 seconds. Do you have an Ethernet port in your room? I understand your room is completely underwater, but like, is there an Ethernet port you can plug into?
Let me wash some stuff around.
Sure. I'm sure you don't have an Ethernet cable, because why would you have that? But if that's a thing that could become a part of your life, that would be very cool for me. See, I have no idea.
I don't even know why I'm looking. I know I don't have one.
Okay, it should be like a square one. It should be like a
a port. Yes, I do have one of those. I thought you were asking. I knew. Okay, there was some miscommunication there. You were talking about the port. I do have a port, and it's under my desk, which is great. But I don't have a cord.
That's perfect. Could you acquire one of those? They're not very expensive.
Yeah. I can just probably go. I probably go to a Goodwill, or like, just find the last Radio Shack.
You could. Here's the thing, buddy. You could. Because I'm really getting about 20% of the podcast, and I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just really hoping you keep talking, and then you pop back in. But I'm like, maybe I'm gonna pop back into silence. Maybe he's only been broken up. Maybe it only broke up for 2 seconds, and this has been 8 seconds of him waiting for me to reply. I have no idea.
Yeah.
All right, that concludes our Patreon exclusive Two Guys Doing Tech Support segment.
Yeah. I have.
Go ahead.
I have no news about cartoons. I have not one news.
Have you read the book Creativity Inc.?
You know I haven't read the book Creativity Inc.
I know. You should get it on Audible for free.
Ooh.
Just do a 2-week trial. This is not brought to you by Audible. But
go to Audible/Two Dudes Work on Tech Support for absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Maybe it'll give your computer a virus. Yeah, dude, it's a very good book. So it's about the history of Pixar. So here's as an animator, I think I'm going through my Pixar phase. Eventually, I'll go through a Miyazaki phase. I like don't get me wrong. I am aware of both of these like studios and Ghibli and Pixar,
Ooh.
and have watched lots of their movies. But like, I am currently going through a phase where it's like maybe all I should think about all day is Pixar, and eventually I'll go through a phase where all I think about is Miyazaki, and I understand that. But right now I'm in my Pixar phase, and I'm really enjoying it. The book is very, very good. It goes through the basic like history of Pixar, but then also gives some like managerial advice, which I don't really care about. But it's mostly just like, hey, here's how we made movies, and do you want to hear a bunch of cool behind the scenes stuff about all your favorite movies? It's very, very, very good.
Like that one time that in Toy Story 2, they accidentally do the entire movie.
It is in there. That story is in there, and it's rad.
Yeah. Man, shout out to working moms.
Shout out to working. No, so wait. Here's my question: how do you know that story, but you don't know that story from Creativity Inc.?
It's just one of those things that circles around the internet every once in a while. Like, like some of those like things that turn out to be true, like crazy facts that like kind of make their rounds like every 6 months for the people that don't know, and then all the people that do know are like, yes, we all know this.
Right.
I'm trying to think of another one that like people bring up all the time. A lot of movie things, like that scene in Django Unchained where Leonardo DiCaprio smashed a bottle and all the glass got in his hand. Like that was improvised.
Right.
There's other things like that where it's like, oh man, do you know that this was improvised? It's like, yes, we all know it's improvised, but there's always like, a bunch of people that are like, whoa, that's crazy. I didn't know that. And it's like, don't worry, you'll have the exact same emotion in 6 months when this comes up again. So it's one of that, exactly. The Toy Story being deleted and then being found on a hard drive from a working mom who was working at home is one of the like ongoing stories that I hear a lot about.
Weird. Well, I heard it from that book, and it's very, very good. Also, have you seen Incredibles 2?
I could get this book for $1.
Do it.
Maybe I will.
It's very good. The audiobook or the regular book?
The regular book, a hardcover even.
I mean, that's fine too.
I'm thinking of expanding my library. I have this like I have this really nice. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain my room, and I do a really bad job of this. Okay, so imagine a room.
I've seen your room, right?
Oh, okay? I'm explaining to the people that haven't seen my room.
You're painting a fiction. You're painting an audio fiction.
I'm painting an audio fiction. Okay,
Theater of the mind.
So imagine a room. You have the floor. The floor is covered in water, and above the floor you have this shelf that goes along the perimeter of the entire room. So my entire room is like surrounded by this really big like shelf that follows all the way around. And I only use probably 1/8 of that for actual books, and other things is just like I just keep things up there. And so I really feel like I'm missing out on this golden opportunity I have of this shelf that goes all the way around my room that people would be super stoked to have further books, and I'm just using them for like Flight of the Conchords DVDs that I'm not going to watch anymore because who has a DVD player?
Well, then you could be like Alaska and have a whole wall-to-wall bookcase that gets ruined by water. See, this is what you need to do. You need to eventually just really embrace your full identity, which is become Alaska from the book Looking for Alaska, and have an entire bookcase that gets ruined by water. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, I'm honestly...
Also, separately, could I have my copy of Looking for Alaska back?
Oh, yeah, I do have that. It's in my library. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's part of it, so no.
Yeah, your library is going to get one book shorter because you've had the book for 3 years. This whole podcast has been me building up to asking for my book Looking for Alaska back.
You're just trying to maintain this friendship so you can be like, all right, nah, like enough is enough. Turn your audio off.
At one point, our friend Sarah had it.
Yeah.
And then somehow it got back to you. I think.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Am I remembering this wrong?
Maybe, but
she borrowed it from me and then gave it to you to get to me, and it never got back.
Now, the thing about that is, today is actually Sarah's birthday. Happy birthday, friend of the show, Sarah.
She's going to be 29 by the time this comes out, but sure. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Whatever.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that did happen, but like, I have so many books that have like fallen away from my collection, specifically my copy of Ready Player One, which I have no idea where that is. And the funny thing, I have one book in my collection this is a story for another time, but once upon a time I flew to Texas for a wedding, and I was
remember that.
and I was given this book by this girl, and it was her favorite book. And this is like her favorite book of all time. And she gave it to me, and I was like, oh, no, like I'm flying back to Kentucky. Like, you're not going to see this book again. And then she was like, books are for reading and sharing. They're not for storing. And I have never read this book, and it's been on my bookshelf for like 3 years.
Now, wait a minute. Now, that very ethereal, like, from the fairy realm sentence that she said, is this the girl that you almost dated, or am I thinking of a different friend?
You're thinking of the... Okay, so...
No, wait a minute. Let me give what I'm remembering.
Okay.
There's a girl who you went to a wedding.
Yes.
Oh my God, I don't remember any of this. You were going to a wedding and you wanted to date her, or she wanted to date you, or you were going to date at the wedding or something. And I feel like I remember encouraging you to not do whatever it is that you were going to do. How close am I?
You're kind of close.
Okay.
You have remembered details from selective experiences, but
various stories. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, okay, this story makes me not come out on top, and this is like a very 21-year-old boy story.
Hey, buddy, it's your podcast. You tell whatever story you want.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell the story.
But like, you're asking about it, and so I'm going to correct you while also trying to maintain my integrity, which is impossible.
Sure.
So, I flew to Texas. Reverse. The summer prior, I had gone to England to work for a church, and it was like through this organization where every week we had to go back to this base camp. And at the base camp, there was tons of people from tons of other projects, yada, yada, yada. There was this one girl there named Courtney, and her and I became...
Oh, buddy, we cannot... Do you really want to... I really want to help you out. Do you want to use this person's real name while you're telling the story?
No, this is not the person.
Got it.
There's a different person. And I'll use her name too. There's no way...
vomit in the middle of the story.
There's no way she's going to hear this. If she hears this, she's married too, so it'll be fine.
I'm offended by your lack of faith in this project, but also fine. Continue.
I follow her on Instagram. She only cares about bringing her own kombucha and raising chickens. Like it is, there's no way. Maybe there's a way. I don't know.
Literally, I bleep out anything that gives like a 300-mile radius of my house, and it's like you're like, yeah, me and Courtney were hanging out. Okay, dude, whatever. That's your.
Okay, so
whatever. You and Courtney are hanging out at 126 Baker Street or whatever.
So me and Courtney, 126 Baker Street, and we become really close friends. She is engaged, and she is like, hey, I know that we just met, but I want you to come to my wedding in December. And I was like, that sounds awesome. And then at one day, she was like, hey, my other friend, who shall remain nameless, is going to be visiting in a couple of weeks. You want to like come and hang out with us in the town you're in for a day? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So me and Courtney and this other girl, we're all hanging out. And then me and this other girl become like also friends, but I've only known her for a day. And then so we all fly back to America. And then the time of Courtney's wedding comes up. And Courtney is like, hey, you want to come to my wedding still? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll buy a plane ticket out there. It'll be a fun time. This other girl is like, hey, you don't have to, like, I know those flights are really expensive, so you don't have to get a hotel. You can just, like, stay at my house. We have a guest room. And I was like, tight. That sounds like a great idea. Spoiler alert, it was not a great idea. So, anyhoozle, I go to this place. We spend I go to this wedding. It is hilarious because it is on December 23rd and it is on a Monday morning. And right. It was in the minute was clock at 8 minutes long. It was the best wedding I've ever been to. And, so I'm like hanging out with this one girl the entire time, fully oblivious to what's happening. And she is like cueing me in all these like really important parts of her life. And I'm just like, yeah, sure, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then she gives me this book. I fly back to Kentucky. And then through a text message, she's like, hey, I think we should date. And I'm like, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. And then I never speak to this girl ever again. So there's a lot more details that are just like me just being willfully oblivious to like signs that the more I tell it, the more like I just see the shock in people's eyes of like, why did you think that was like gonna go over well? And I'm like, I don't know, like I was like a kid, but I wasn't. This was 4 years ago.
So here's the thing. The main details of the story did get cut out. You said, hey, I think we should date, and she said no. Is that what happened?
No. She said, hey, I think
Other
we
way
should
around?
date. And then I said no.
Oh, I have no idea if you're paused or if it's just you're gone.
Well, luckily
Whatever. I don't give a shit. Who cares?
luckily for me, I was talking the entire time, and then you just said, "But I don't know if you're paused." So I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess I'm done talking."
All right. Great. Sorry. This is not how. We're only 37 minutes in, and I have no idea what we've talked about for 37 minutes.
We've talked about Cory Booker. We've talked about this girl having an unrequited love for me, and then
That's very good for you.
Yeah. All great things. Anyway, this
I said shit twice, so I'm gonna have to cut that out. That's gonna be super fun for me.
Yeah. You could just cut it in with the naughty bits.
The naughty bits? What are the naughty bits?
Whenever you told that one story, come on, Sam.
Oh, that story is in a fire. That story is gone in a fire. There's literally no way that story is making it to air.
Oh man,
I regret. Here's what happened.
Well, the thing, Sam, I really think that all we have, like in the days of the apocalypse, when everything is dust and we were wandering the wasteland. It's,
so like 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, like 2 weeks from now. It is going to be all that you and me will have is like like a backpack, a set of minor skills, and a bunch of stories. And that's going to be our job in the apocalypse. Is just like, gather around. Let me tell you about Cory Booker.
Let me tell you about this party I went to that got out of hand and seemed mildly interesting at the time and now is deeply upsetting.
Gather around, children, sit on my lap. Well, yeah. So for the listeners that didn't hear it,
it's gone. It's so good.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I don't know. We're so far behind with that episodes. Like, who knows what I'll think? But I'm definitely cutting vast majorities of that story.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I haven't decided if I'm going to bleep out all the cussing. I just feel like probably I should, but I'm not really. I don't know. I feel like that's maybe the way the show could go.
That's true. I mean, we could allow the minor three, hell, damn, ass, those, and then we'll just see how we feel about
I don't think hell and damn are cuss words. I don't even think about it that way.
You don't?
You know what would be more interesting if we talked about our thoughts about cuss words? That would be a very good adult conversation.
Is it?
No, not at all.
Oh, yeah. I was like, that's like one of those things, whenever like at a restaurant or something and you hear someone being like, you got Miller Lite's awful, Bud Light's where it's like, dude, what are we talking about? Like, why?
What are we talking about?
And that goes back into I think one of the ongoing questions that we're trying to answer with this podcast. So the podcast has some rules, but there's also the ongoing goal, which is what do people talk about?
What do people
talk about?
Hey, Zach, what do people talk about?
I don't know. And I think
it's the same genre with what do people do all day?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think that you're trying to get into the weeds of it by just that. I think that lends into, your love of Jimmy Buffett. You're just like, at the end of the day, it's just like, what do people talk about? Like, is this what people talk about? Beaches? Yeah. Like kites? Like, what do people talk about?
But see, if you look at someone and go, hey, man, you want to talk about Jimmy Buffett? They go, nah, I don't really know anything about Jimmy Buffett. And you're like, okay. Do you want to talk about the geopolitical situation in Ukraine? Nah, I don't know anything about that either. And it's like, I don't know where you're at on this spectrum between Ukraine and Jimmy Buffett because that's what I feel like the spectrum is, and you got nothing for me. So, like, what do you want to talk about? And they're like, man, I kind of hate my boss. And it's like, okay, I guess we'll talk about that.
Yeah, cool. I don't know your boss.
I don't know your boss, though. Here's what I think. Here's what I think. Let me give you my hot take.
Okay, here we go. Hot take, hot mic.
Here's what I think people talk about. Nothing. But people just want to be listened to. I don't think anyone talks about anything interesting, but they really just want to be heard. And so they just say stuff and hope people are listening. But I don't think anyone ever considers if what they are saying is interesting for the other person to hear. Like, I really don't. I don't think people talk and it's just like, what's the story? You know what I mean? Like, someone's like telling a story and you're like, yeah, but what's the story? Like, what's the punchline? What's the bit?
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people who aren't deeply broken aren't like constantly thinking about how they can turn this into like how this should have some sort of narrative resolution. They're just talking because they want to feel heard, which so do I, but I want to feel heard and also entertain people. And like, I just feel like most people are just talking, and it's like, what are you? They get to the end of it, and it's like, I don't even know what you were talking about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what are you talking about? Because it's just like a meandering random story that doesn't really have a point or resolution. It's just a bunch of facts and events in a row, and it's like, what are you talking about, man? And then when I try to think back of like, what do people talk about? It's like, I don't know. You know how many conversations I have a week about what I had for dinner? Like a lot. My wife is a very good cook, and I literally just have conversations probably 5 times a week, probably once a day. One of my coworkers will just talk about food we ate one time, and that's what we talk about.
That's pretty cool.
Like, oh, I ate this one time, and then they're like, yeah, one time I ate this, and that's the conversation. And I like it because I also want to be heard, but then I think back of like, what did I talk about? And it was like, nothing. I didn't talk about anything. It's really wild to me.
Yeah. I want you to take that audio file, put it on a zip drive, put it into a time capsule, throw that thing in the dirt, and then dig it up in 10 years. And then just like relish on how that might have been the most 25-year-old sentence or like statement ever.
Oh no, was that embarrassing? Did I just say an embarrassing thing?
I mean,
it's going in the fire. Hey, welcome to the fire. If you're listening to this, you found all the stuff that goes in the fire.
No. You should have listened to it, and then you should have listened to it. I just think that
see you bye forever.
If I know you, and I do, I think you're gonna listen back to that and be like, whose man's is this? Who like it really felt like you were just like, man, people talk about nothing, and I like to entertain people, so at least I'm saying something that's entertaining while I'm wanting to be heard. And it's like, oh, that's so. I mean, take that with a grain of salt. I would definitely listen back to it.
Okay. Let me clarify. I still agree that people talk about nothing. I also talk about nothing. I talk about what I eat on a pretty regular basis, which is so boring, and I don't understand why anyone listens to anything. But what I'm saying is that when I tell a story, the goal is like a laugh. Like, oh, I'm telling this story because it's funny, right? Like that is that's the pitch. Like, why am I talking? This story has a punchline or like a point to it. I wouldn't tell this story if there's no like punchline. But then you listen to other people talk and it's like, what's the punchline? Where is this story going? Like, where's it going? Like, where are we going with this? What is this story about? Like your husband and he came home and then he sat in a chair. You know what I mean? Like where are you going? Like where are you going with this story about whatever? Like what's the story? What's the story? What's the narrative arc? Where's the like story?
Yeah.
And there isn't one. It's just like, no, I'm just your friend and I want to be heard. So there's not a story. It's just I want to be heard. And so like, what am I talking about? Well, nothing. I'm not really talking about anything. There's not like a point. There's not like an overarch. I'm not saying this as a negative thing. I'm just saying it as a thing. Like, it's not bad. It just is. It's like, what am I talking about? I'm not talking about anything. I'm just kind of like talking because I want to feel acknowledged and heard. Mm-hmm. It's all bad. Welcome to the fire. Hey, everybody, welcome to the fire. This is one of the bad episodes.
Well, I mean, while we're here, and if this is going to fire, then I will talk about this as well. I do agree with that. And in the way that if I'm telling a story or I'm telling like anything that's going on and I don't think that it's going to end in a satisfying conclusion way, I will just like, while I'm telling it, like make up a punchline out of nowhere just to bring some resolution to the end of it.
Yeah.
And
I like stop stories in the middle and go, this is boring. Never mind. And like stop telling the story. I'm like, you know what? I thought about it while I was talking and like this story is boring.
And
Bye.
I mean, I think that lends into how like in the way of like the way I do, and I think based on previous podcasts that we've talked about, is like the way we process information like a narrative. And one of the ways that I kind of relate to a situation happening to me is like almost as it's happening, like how can I spin this, and or like I'll revisit it later, and then as I'm telling it, I will like on purpose omit things and I'll like embellish things in the way of like making it into a thing. Like that one time I got robbed at gunpoint, and now I tell it like it's a bit. And that's like
exactly, you make it into a bit. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're making it a bit. You're making it a story. It is a narrative. Like you're telling it because it's a story and the purpose is to entertain.
Yeah.
You're not just listing a bunch of facts. You're saying like, here is a story that has a narrative arc and a punchline and a payoff. And if there wasn't, I wouldn't tell it because there's like a point. There's either a point to the story or like a punchline.
Yeah.
And like, that's why I'm telling it. I'm not just telling it as like, and then I walked down the street and then this happened and then this happened and then I went home.
Yeah. And I think that, and for me at least, I think that it kind of puts in this way of like almost a challenge of relating to people in the way that if I don't think it's interesting or I don't think it's gonna be a narrative, I don't talk about it, you know? And I think that you kind of lose a lot of the mundaneness of like living relationally life on life with people. Cause it's like, what'd you do today? You don't care what I did today. Like I woke up, I read,
Totally.
and then like I did this, and then there's like, oh, cool, and then they'll tell me what they did, and I'm just like, what are we doing? like,
no, I get that with people I haven't seen very often, where they're like, how's life? And I'm like, I mean, I work a lot.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
What, do you want to hear about like, oh, well, this person at work was kind of snotty to me? Like, what do you care? Like, what, you don't know who these people are. Like, I tell my wife those things because she like is invested in the story. And cares about me. But like, she knows who all, like, if you think of it like a story, like she knows who all the characters are. She knows their arc. She knows what kind of their personality is, and hearing different characters in conflict and hearing conflicts escalate is interesting. She's also a person, and I recognize she like loves me and just wants to hear about my life. But she's way more invested in work drama because she's following the ongoing storylines.
Yeah, like it's not like a story that has a beginning, middle, and it's episodic. You know, like you're filling them in on like on today's episode of X was snotty to me at work.
Yeah, and if I just showed up and you were like, "Oh, tell me about episode 37 of this show," it'd be like, "Why?"
Yeah,
Why? Like, why do you like? Do you want me to start at episode 1? That's gonna take a really long time. But like, why do you want to be on episode 37? That seems like a weird.
Yeah,
like,
and
how's episode 37? It's good. Like, what do you want for like what? How much do you want the 1 minute version? Or I'm sorry, do you want the 10-second version or do you want the 3.5 hour version? Because I don't really have a middle ground for this.
Yeah, and I think like, and I'd like, I do like, I think it's like almost in a way of like, to me, it's like I consider it kind of a character flaw in like relating to people with narratives like that, like if they're not directly involved. Because like, so for example, if something interesting does happen to me that I can spin as a narrative, I will wear that story out forever. And like as a way of just like kind of not necessarily like pushing people back, but just a way of like, you don't care. like you don't care what I did today, and like don't act like you did, but you do care that one time I saw a guy break into a car with a brick. Like that's like a fun thing that I can tell you that happened. It wasn't a fun thing. But it did actually
happen. It was very scary.
It was scary. And also, another thing about that is if you've never been in a fight or flight situation, there's a couple more options, and one of them is freeze. And I've decided that is my situation always, because, you know, you don't want to like, you have like your brain goes like the fast and slow thing you were talking about. Sure. Like your brain goes really fast and you're like, do I like confront this guy? He's holding a brick. Like, I don't know. I don't have a brick. Like he's going to be, to me versus brick. And I can't handle that. And then what am I going to do if I get him? You know, like, do I like, this is a citizen's arrest? Like what? Anyway. But yeah, I think that the what do people talk about, that I can kind of get lost in the not talking about mundane things and kind of letting people into actual life, because I'm like, this is boring and you don't care. And so I'm not going to let you into these parts. And if something interesting does happen, then like, I'm going to say that thing a ton, because this is a thing I can spin as a narrative.
Yeah, I might be the wrong person to talk to about this because I totally agree with that thing that you're saying is a character flaw. I'm like, yeah, everything you're saying is 100% right. Either have an interesting story or who cares? Why would I tell you? Like, why? Yeah, I 100% agree. Okay, here's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
We're at 52 minutes.
Yeah.
Got 8 minutes left of the podcast.
Yeah.
Assuming this one doesn't go in the fire. Maybe it is.
Yeah,
it might be burned all the way down.
Yeah.
But assuming it isn't, next week, let's come with some. Let's I guess watch some media. Is that the show? It's an ongoing process of figuring out what the show is. We watch a media and then talk about it.
It's get better in what we talk about, and also get better in and that truly is like the crux of it. Is like, what are we getting better at? Because I think like are we addressing character flaws like we just did, or are we just talking about Hilda? What's going on?
Well, I mean, the reason we made the show and the whole point of it was like, all week I think about how to tell stories and what's a good story, because about halfway through most of the stories I tell on this show, I'm like, this is not a good story. Do not tell that story ever again. And like, I do genuinely think about storytelling and talking and how to like communicate and like listen well to people, because like I have a very intense nonstop like I can't break character for an hour, right? Like I can't be like, hey, I'm tired. Can I just call you back? Like I can't do that because like the show is going on. Like I have to talk for an hour and listen for an hour, and like that's challenging. So it is an ongoing process of getting better. But I think, and we've done this plenty of times, the intervals are getting shorter, but we hit these valleys. We'll have a valley episode. Where it's just like, oh no, we lost our momentum. So I think we really need to come at it. I don't know why I thought I would have more to say about summer. I'm really stoked about summer. I'm ready for it. I'm going to be out. I'm going to be listening to country music and throwing frisbees. I'm trying to get some summer energy going, but I think we need to watch some good stuff. Because I guess this is a media podcast. We'll figure it, because we're just trying to figure out what people talk about.
That's true.
And maybe that's media. And we need to come at it tomorrow. Next week. We need to come at it next week. We record, so we have 25 episodes, and they all recorded over 25 days. We're very, very tired.
This is why it's in a valley, and it's been raining all of those days.
Yeah, 25 days. It's been raining. There have been mudslides. I'm very, very sad. So yeah, I think we need to come at it.
Okay.
I think this episode was okay. Maybe it'll stick around. Maybe it's in a fire. Who knows?
Who knows, really? I admitted some.
You should very much get an Ethernet cable. I really would suggest it.
Yeah.
We've got a whole new setup for me, but it is in the mail. And so it'll be here eventually.
Yeah. So that'll be my process of getting better this week, is getting Ethernet cable. I'm like
Ethernet cable.
Huh?
I just said get an Ethernet cable.
Oh, I thought you were making fun of the way I said Ethernet cable, and then I kind of realized that I don't really know how to say Ethernet cable. Also, I'm having to buy a lot of weird things recently, and I guess we need to talk about. There's this, assuming this is going in the fire. Today, I had to buy a fuse for my dryer because the dryer broke, and
it's a new house.
No. Well, like the dryer just it shorts. Like the fuses break in dryers. Like you just have to get a new fuse. Sure. It's like they're not getting a new dryer. And it was like $5, but it was, so one of my roommates is getting married very soon and he has been house handyman. And I think I am now like having to take on that role as like watching people just being like, the sink's clogged. What are we going to do? And it's like,
oh no.
And it's just like, you pull up a YouTube video. You just like, okay, see how like we have all of these tools. They're right here. They're in the closet right next to the bathroom. And just like undo this pipe, clean this thing out, put it back, and then we're done. We're done forever. And they're just like, oh man, what are we gonna do? And then so like I fixed the sink today. And then I was trying to explain. I was like, yeah, so this is what we do in case this happens. And they were just like, okay, all right. I wasn't listening. I was watching the Grand Tour on Amazon. I'm like, sure, great. So like, I'm really excited to like, and that like, I fixed the sink today, and then the dryer broke, and then like none of them troubleshot the problem. So I'm just really excited to really cue into that. So I'm like my Amazon list today has already been so odd. So I'm just gonna like put Ethernet cable on it, and then Amazon's be like, dude, I don't know what you're building over there, but more power to you, man.
They'll say, "Hey, it sounds like you're getting better," and you say, "Oh God, I'm trying so hard."
Get better.
That's the name of the show. Get better. : Oh, we're just trying so hard.
Yeah. And then Jeff Bezos hears this, and he's just like, "Me too, dog."
I guess. Is he?
Yeah. I don't know.
Is he?
I don't know. I really don't. I mean, who's to say? I don't know. We don't hang out.
All right.
All right.
See you. Bye forever.
See you. Bye forever.